Hello, welcome back. I'm Stephen Holder here with Zach Keefer. Back to chop some wood on the Chop and Wood podcast. And damn if we don't have a lot of wood to chop. Man, it's been a heck of a few days around here. Just lots of conversation about really the same thing, but it seems like it's Groundhog Day around here every day with injuries. And so we're taping this here on Tuesday afternoon going into week 4 of the preseason, Zach. And then today we get news on Vontae Davis. So just in case people haven't heard, what's the update there? Vontae Davis, Pro Bowl cornerback, and he is what?
Yeah, you're not kidding. This is devastating right now. He's hurt. I mean, he's got a groin injury that's very significant. Those are Chuck Pagano's words. He's the one guy in the secondary you couldn't afford to lose. You know that. Everybody listening to this podcast knows that. I will say this, Vontae Davis has been superb this preseason. I think he had 8 tackles and minimal playing time on Saturday night in Pittsburgh. He's been fantastic in camp. I mean, I really thought this guy was going to have a career year, and very well he could down the line. But doesn't this feel like last year? He got hurt right before the opener. They signed 2 guys off the street, and with the lead, with a minute to go, they let Matthew Stafford drive down the field in 30 seconds and beat them. And now you're looking at what? At the cornerback spot. Quincy Wilson? I mean, you're going to have to start a rookie in week 1.
Quincy Wilson, Nate Hairston, et al. And, Chuck Pagano said, deja vu. Those were his words.
Right.
So anyhow, getting back to the overarching subject here, injuries. So it's been just one thing after another. Ryan Kelly, Eric Swope. Oh, Andrew Luck. You've heard of him.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about him.
Yeah. So let's do this. Let's sort of talk about where they're at. And I think these injuries, it's not the number of injuries as much as who's injured.
Yeah.
They're casting a pall over this whole team right now. The quarterback situation, we don't know when Andrew Luck's coming back. I think they're going to put him on the 53-man roster on Saturday, it appears.
They have to.
Right.
You would agree, right?
And Pagano kind of gave me a confirmation on that today. So I never expected he would be on the PUP list for the regular season, but there was always that possibility because there are no sure things.
Should we review why that's so significant? Because
yes.
For those curious out there, and we have lived this the last 6 weeks, so we actually know more about it than we probably should, but he's on the PUP list right now. That's the short-term IR for the preseason. The Colts have to decide on Saturday by 4 p.m. if he's going to be on the regular season PUP list or the active roster. Now, if you move into the active roster, he can practice with the team whenever he's cleared by the doctors and then presumably play within the first, whenever he's going to play.
Whenever, exactly.
If he's on the regular season PUP list like Clayton Gathers is, that means he doesn't play the first 6 weeks at minimum.
Right.
And I think if that happens, then something has gone terribly wrong.
Right.
I can't see a scenario where he's on the PUP list come Saturday at 4:30.
And again, Chuck Pagano today, I think he all but said he will be on the 53-man list.
That's the plan.
And so I don't anticipate anything changing. So
Chuck Pagano is in a tough spot.
He is.
And we give him a hard time because we have to ask him about Andrew Luck just about every single day. But literally, Chuck Pagano, he's been told by someone, you can't say anything about this guy. So he's in a tough spot.
Yeah, and one thing, and I chimed in on Twitter about this, and you did as well, don't underestimate Andrew Luck's role in this, okay? Andrew Luck does not want you talking about his shoulder, okay?
Nope.
And we've been through this before, okay? 2 years ago, 2015, Andrew Luck had the shoulder injury, the original shoulder injury, and he missed those 2 games. Do you remember what was happening?
Do you remember teammates not knowing who the quarterback was on Friday afternoon or Sunday morning?
No, literally
they didn't know.
Matt Hasselbeck would pull up to Lucas Oil Stadium and be like, I think I'm playing.
How bizarre is that? I mean, Matt Hasselbeck.
Yeah, that Thursday down in Houston, it wasn't established until that Thursday morning that Andrew wasn't going to play. And then, of course, the issue there was, well, is
Hasselbeck
going to play? You know, that was the attic in the basement game. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it. I'm not going to get into it. But quote of the century.
It's been a fun couple of years. We'll just say that.
Never a dull moment. But anyhow, I think that's a big factor here. Chuck Pagano, yes, he clearly is bending over backwards to not say anything. But, again, a big factor here is Andrew Luck doesn't like talking about his injuries. And I talked to a teammate of his yesterday, and I was told no one talks about it. It's just not talked about. They were asking me, so what do you hear? Like, you're joking, right?
So it's amazing. And I mean, I was talking to Pat McAfee last week, thinking he had some insight because he knows a lot of these players, and he said they won't tell him a thing. I told they won't tell us a thing. It's a very, very tight circle, and that's why you're not seeing anything leaked at all regarding Andrew Luck's status. It's really remarkable what they're doing, but that's a good point. Don't underscore Andrew Luck's, what the role he plays in this, because he's even lied to us before. I mean, we can't let him off the hook. How's your shoulder, Andrew? I'm fine. I'll be good to go next week, and then he misses 2 weeks. So, strange times over here on West 56th Street.
Yeah. So now here they are, okay, trying to field the football team, trying to put together a roster which already has, quite a few weaknesses to begin with, even if it was 100%. And yet they're trying to do that with this backdrop of all these guys hurt. So you got 53 spots. Well, we just gave you 4 or 5 of them that are going to be occupied by guys who can't play. And they're like their best players, okay, in some cases. So, we're talking about Andrew Luck and Vontae Davis and Ryan Kelly. Chester Rogers hasn't been around. And so today I thought Chuck Pagano, when things get stressful, he starts to become more truthful. And I don't mean about injuries. I mean just about, like, circumstances. And so today, did you hear him? He said, we can't carry all these guys. Like, I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do.
That's a tough spot for Chuck Pagano and Chris Ballard on Saturday when they're making these final decisions. How many guys will they have to carry on the 53 that can't play right now?
Yeah, I mean, he gave a good joke. He says, you got to carry player A, B, C, D, and he kept going to, like, P. And I was like, how many injuries do you have, man?
I mean, you got to play 46. You got to have 46 ready to go, and
I know it.
It's sad how this has turned for this team, because through the first 2-3 weeks of camp, they were relatively healthy, 12 being the exception. And I thought if 12 came back, they could surprise some people with this early schedule that's not that intimidating.
That was always sort of the variable.
Man, that seems like a long way away, because they are hurting. You could make the argument that 3 of their top 5 players are going to start week 1 on the bench, and that being Andrew Luck, Ryan Kelly, and Vontae Davis. And there's other question marks.
At least 4 starters.
There's other question marks all over the place.
Yeah, at least 4 starters and maybe more. I mean, there's still some guys missing practice who we can't really account for right now. Like, is Jonathan Hankins okay? He's a guy who hasn't been out there. As I said, Chester Rogers, he's now, I think, 2 weeks.
You know who the real question mark is? Is Jack Muhort.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you.
You know what?
I have
let's
a bad
talk
feeling about
Muhort.
Jack Muhort.
Okay, let's talk about Jack Muhort. So I've learned now, and you have too, Zach, to pay attention to words, okay? And I think this was on Monday. We asked about Jack Muhort. And throughout the whole preseason, it's just been, okay, Jack's coming off a knee injury. We're being careful. And then he played a couple games, or maybe just one, but he played a little bit. And he's practiced for the most part, so we figured, okay, is what it is. Well, lately he's been practicing less and less. And then he hasn't played. And now on Monday, Chuck, I thought he really got my attention by saying, well, look, we're taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and we're just trying to get him to the season now.
Ding, ding, ding.
What? So
it's a huge cause for concern in a couple reasons. One, it's the same injury that Kendall Langford had last year, and Kendall came back too quickly and never was the same, and he's not with the Colts anymore. And 2, Jack Muhort not out there for practice, it makes you worry. And this is a significant knee injury that he had last year. If you remember the play, I think it was a screen pass to Frank Gore that turned into a touchdown, and Muhort's leg just got shredded on the play. But the fact that he's moving backwards now as we get closer to the season is a huge cause for concern. And look, he's maybe your most consistent offensive lineman, period. And the fact that he's not out there today, they've only got 4 practices to go. Moving forward past this meaningless preseason game on Thursday night,
right.
You're at Monday of week 1, and the status of Jack Muhort, your right guard, is completely up in the air, and that's a huge cause for concern, because he's a guy that you can rely on, and you can't rely on a lot of those guys on that line.
Okay, and so along those same lines, no pun intended, the offensive line's kind of a mess, okay? Think about this now. So Ryan Kelly's out, and that is what it is. He's got a broken foot. He's going to miss, could be 6 weeks. We don't know. So he's out for the foreseeable future. Then now they got issues with Jack Muhort, okay? And is he okay? Is he not okay? Even if he plays day 1, is the knee going to hold up? But there's always those questions, right? And then they don't know what the hell they're doing at right tackle.
Well,
they don't have a right tackle is the problem.
We've asked this question for 5 years. They've gone through about 10 different guys who they hoped would be the right tackle. The newest one is Jeremy Vujnovic, who they've liked. I mean, he was a serviceable backup.
They've always kept him
year.
Around. Yeah.
I think the idea for Jeremy Vujnovic is he's the new Joe Wright, right? He's your sixth guy, and if he's your sixth guy, you're okay. He can play both spots, a tackle and a guard. But look, LaRaven Clark, man, it was your right tackle job to lose, and you lost it one game into the preseason.
Right. I mean, what does that tell you about I guess it says a lot about LaRaven Clark, really. I mean, I thought I never made an assumption about him, but I figured, as you just said, it was his job to lose. And as long as he kept progressing, I didn't really see anyone taking it from him. But then last week, or I should say 2 weeks ago in Dallas, they started Jeremy Vujnovic, and that was like, well, all right, well, that's interesting.
Yeah, maybe they're sending him a message.
Right.
Maybe they're sending Clark a message.
And as it turned out, they wanted to take a look at somebody else because LaRaven Clark wasn't getting it done. And then next thing we knew, but Zach Banner was taking first-team reps. So,
and if you've been listening to Choppin' Wood, like I know all of you have, we said this when the season started. We said, this offensive line, I don't care what they say, it's not set in stone. We've seen this in the past where they have their 5-man rotation, and it looks great in preseason, and it looks great without the pads on. But when they play games, these guys get exposed. And until LaRaven Clark does it 5, 6, 7 regular season games in a row, I was not sold on him.
Right.
They pulled the trigger way earlier than that.
Yeah, tell me about it. And so the one thing I'd say is that the line has actually performed okay. At least last week it was okay. Now, with the starting offense, I didn't really have much of an issue with the performance of the starting offense. Now, beyond the starters, it got messy, and that tends to happen.
Yeah, the depth is not there, but that's, I mean.
Well, that is what it is, and that's probably true for a lot of teams. I get that.
Right.
But that starting unit was okay. The problem I have is you're only really just scratching the surface right now. The Pittsburgh Steelers, okay, I hate to tell you, now that was a good performance for the Colts, generally speaking. Like, they acquitted themselves okay.
They played better.
Yeah, that was a big step in the right direction. However, I hate to break it to you, but the Pittsburgh Steelers treated that game like it was a joke.
Yeah.
Okay?
I mean,
and
you could tell. Antonio Brown was posing for photos on the sideline before the game. Brandon Roethlisberger ran out, threw a couple passes, said, I'm good. If it was regular season, I'd throw for 6 touchdowns against this team.
Probably. And so what that tells me, though, is, all right, if you were playing the Steelers in the regular season, now you're getting twists and stunts and all kinds of strategy. And, of course, the Colts would do so as well. But those are the things that have really, I think, posed a challenge for this offensive line. Okay, we know they can block man to man.
It has for years.
Yeah, they can do the basics. When you throw sort of variables at them, they haven't handled it well. So we'll see. Can Deshaun Bond hold up, against that Rams front when they start bringing heat?
Can Anthony Costanzo?
Yeah. I mean, Deshaun Bond, by the way, is the starting center right now, just in case you didn't know who he was.
And one guy you'd probably be able to depend upon is Jack Mewhort if he was healthy.
Yeah.
I think he can hold up against anybody, but huge question mark.
Yeah.
What else is new? The offensive line is a question mark.
I mean, it really just underscores the fact that not much has changed around here. I mean, the offensive line is still a question. I do think there are better pieces than they've had in the past. I'm not going to just outright say it's garbage. No, that's
Joe
not
Haig
fair.
is a huge bright spot.
Yeah, they have pieces.
You have to give him credit. Yeah.
And Ryan Kelly's still here. It is what it is. He's hurt.
Yeah.
But they do have issues there right now, and these are fundamental issues. Okay, they're going to have the offensive line issue. They're going to have Vontae Davis hurt. Okay, also a recurring theme. They're going to have, the quarterback's hurt, right? I mean, so all the things that would give you hope about this team, they have issues there. All those areas that you would hang your hat on.
Where's the hope at right now?
Where is the hope? Okay, Zach Keefer, where is the hope?
The hope, and this is funny, I was talking about this with someone on the sideline today during practice. The hope is that Andrew Luck puts on a Superman cape, comes back in week 2, and plays miraculously. Way better than you can probably expect him to play realistically. And it's just, you might as well go buy a lottery ticket. I just don't see it happening. You have to live in the realities right now, and that's what Chuck Pagano's so frustrated with. He doesn't have a star quarterback, for one, and secondly, the guys that he needs to lean on are going down by the day, and it's just a tough spot to be in if you're a head coach who needs to win this year.
Yeah. So the fact that we know that Andrew Luck is well, we don't know anything, but we think Andrew Luck's not going to play. So let's talk about Scott Tolzien a little bit here. I mean, we were really unimpressed by what we saw in the first 2 weeks of the preseason. Then, obviously, he took a big step forward last week against Pittsburgh. Stephen Morris probably still outplayed him, but that's a whole other story. That hasn't changed, by the way. Scott is still getting the first-team reps in practice. So that's all that matters in my book. That's your starter. That's what indicates it to me.
Right.
But Scott Tolzien, do you feel any better based on what you saw? That was a game plan game, so he looked like he had it together a little bit more.
I do.
I don't know. What do you think?
I do. I don't know if you agree. I think so.
I do.
I walked away from that saying he looked like he played Saturday night like he did last year against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's not going to wow you. He's not going to make people miss. He's not going to make those throws that really beat cornerbacks. But he's going to manage the game and move the ball down the field if players can make plays. He made one bonehead interception, which he cannot do. If you're Scott Tolzien, you cannot do that.
He got suckered and he fell for it. Yeah.
But they're not making a change at this point. They're not going to make a drastic change at the most important position this late in the preseason. Now, 2 weeks ago, I could have seen them doing that and giving Morris some time with the ones in a game to see how he does. But it's not happening now. So Scott Tolzien's your guy for week 1, in my opinion, barring a huge, stunning turn of events.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. I think that Scott Tolzien, I hope I haven't given anybody the impression like the last month or so just from, look, watching the really poor quarterback play that I have has probably made me better, and I've probably taken it out on Scott Tolzien.
It'll do that to you.
But I hope we haven't given you the impression that Scott Tolzien is a bum, right? Because he's not a bum. He's just he isn't.
The fans are too hard on him.
Yeah, he's not an elite quarterback. He's a backup quarterback. He is what he is. But
all backup quarterbacks are,
right, they're inferior, right?
Barring like 3 or 4, and like Derek Anderson in Carolina is really good. And
right.
There's so few of those.
Right.
And you got to pay him too.
That's the other thing. Right. So look, he is what he is. I think we need to see him for what he is. But he's not a terrible quarterback. He's just an inferior quarterback to your starter, a very inferior quarterback to Andrew Luck. But I think he's a guy who's competent, and if you coach him up, you tell him go do A, B, and C, he can do A, B, and C. Now, he won't do anything beyond that, but he can do that. And he can make a throw from time to time, like we saw him do it the other night on occasion.
Made a couple.
And he can make that intermediate throw. He's not going to be a guy who puts the ball 60 yards in the air on a rope. Okay, he's just not going to do that. But he can throw the intermediate throw. He can make the intermediate throw, and he can find the open guy. But he's generally going to play safe. He's going to find the tight end. And so Jack Doyle, get him on your fantasy team, at least for the first few weeks, that kind of thing. That's who he is. But, competent and a guy who, if other guys make plays, he'll give you a chance.
One thing I will add in that realm is look, Scott Tolzien isn't going against Ben Roethlisberger in week 1.
Sure.
And that's a huge factor in how this game ended last year on Thanksgiving night. They drove down the field a couple of times. They were inside the 5, and you go for it on 4th down because you need 7 as opposed to 3, and I get that. And they didn't convert those, and that's what happened. But he's going against Jared Goff, by all accounts, who has struggled mightily this preseason. Mightily.
Let's put it. Let's actually be more accurate.
Yeah, we're talking to a reporter that was here.
Scott Tolzien's terrible.
Right.
Okay, you haven't seen Jared Goff.
Yeah.
Everything that I've heard and seen has been absolutely just.
So look, maybe field goals win it. I think they probably do. We're getting ahead of ourselves in week 1 talk, but that absolutely changes the way the Colts game plan, and you take the points, and you've got the best kicker ever, and you got Marlon Mack and maybe a run game that's better. We'll see. We'll see. I realize the Rams defense is exceptional, but if Aaron Donald's not out there, that changes things because he's a top 5 player in the league probably.
Yeah. This wasn't something I planned on talking about, but just real quick here, I have to mention a couple guys. The other night, a guy who really, I think, stood out to me against Pittsburgh, surprisingly, was Frank Gore, by the way.
Frank Gore, good.
He looked young, man. I was like, who is this guy?
He hit a hole that made me think, dang, he is not 33 years old.
I was like, is that Marlon Mack?
Right.
Like, no.
Right.
And so, hey, maybe they can run the football, okay? Look, they have – and Turpin hasn't played in a little bit either, so he'll be in the mix too.
They have 3 capable backs.
They actually can run the ball a little bit.
25 years.
So we'll see. And this line is a better run-blocking line than pass-blocking line in my view. So we'll see. I talked about Deshaun Bond, and he threw one hell of a block for Frank Gore on one of Frank's better runs. So, in fact, Frank mentioned it to me the other day. So we'll see. I think if they can run the football, I mean, that's going to be a tough front to run against in L.A.
Yep.
But let's see. I mean, if they can help their quarterback if they can run the ball a little bit, and I think Rob Chudzinski will be more inclined to try to run the football.
Oh, yeah.
Because we know he loves him some deep balls. But if he can stick with the running game, maybe they can give him something. So, and obviously Marlon back, he's going to be a factor for this team, I think, and we'll see how he grows. But we'll see. The running game is a factor there, and we'll see how that plays out over the coming weeks. We talked about cuts. They're coming.
Yep.
We've been batting this around in our media room. Okay, the fact that there could be some surprise moves. Do you think, I don't know, I'm sort of springing this on you, but is there a guy who you would tell people to watch out for, Zach, in terms of either being cut, IR, or whatever it is, a guy who won't be on the 53-man roster who might surprise people? Do you think there's one?
Yeah, there's going to have to be, I think. There's a couple things at play. We don't know Chris Ballard's tendencies. This is the first time he's been in charge of a 53-man cut down.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is they're cutting 37 guys as opposed to having a cut earlier this week and then cutting the rest. I mean, it's going to be a lot of guys at once. And with this team right now, and I don't want to speculate, but that's essentially what we're doing, right? I mean, we're going to have
we're just throwing
our own
out.
roster projections coming out, I believe,
They're
tomorrow.
They're going to be so accurate.
And you can take it to the bank because that's what's going to happen. But I think a couple guys, and I don't think I'm breaking any news here. I'm not sure LaRaven Clark is on this roster. Maybe he is, and I'm just missing it. TJ Green's a guy you wonder about because of that move from safety to corner, and it's going to take him time to develop at corner. But then again, he's only a second-year player, and you look at him physically, and you think he's got a lot to give if he can figure it out.
Yeah.
I think Philip Dorsett makes the roster. I think there's just too much need at the receiver position, and Chester Rogers has been out. Kamar Aiken has not flashed to the point where you think Philip Dorsett is expendable. But those are some names that come to mind right away that I could see some waves being made with those couple of those names.
Yeah. So I'm going to just hit on a couple of those real quick. TJ Green is interesting. I said this the other day, and I stand by it. I don't think TJ Green's place is safe by any stretch of the imagination. And I got a lot of opposition to that on Twitter, but I'm just telling you, it's a numbers game now, okay? And if he's not a guy you can put out there at corner and be confident in yet, and I don't know that he's there yet.
I don't think he's there for the regular season.
Right.
No.
Well, then why would he be on your roster, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you got to play.
As we mentioned a minute ago, those roster spots are especially precious with how many guys they have to carry that are injured.
So we'll see what happens there. LaRaven Clark, I can't believe I'm saying this because I thought this guy was going to be their starting right tackle, but I'm an idiot. But anyhow, him and Zach Banner are kind of the same guy. So I don't know what you do there. I mean,
can you cut a fourth-round pick?
Can you cut a third-round pick?
Fourth-round pick was only picked 6 months ago, so that's the difference, right?
Right, and he was picked by the current GM.
Correct.
So that gets interesting right there. I'm telling you, they can only keep so many offensive linemen, and Ryan Kelly's going to be one of those guys. So, maybe Ryan Kelly is an IR return candidate. I don't know, but that's an 8-week deal. So
yeah,
we'll have to see. I mean, that's a long time.
That's going to be rough if he's out for that long.
I mean, by the time, he's already been out a couple weeks. So you're talking like a 10-week deal if he sits that long. I don't know that was the plan. So, but they may have to make some drastic decisions. So anything's on the table. But I'm telling you, I do think the Raven Clark and Zach Banner conversation is interesting. If Vucinovic is going to be your starter, then what are you going to have, 3 tackles just with 2 guys sitting around? I don't know, man. You got to have guys who can play multiple positions, and I don't think either one of those guys are candidates to play guard.
Correct.
So where does that leave you?
Correct.
I don't know. I think they're going to be having to make a tough call there.
They got tough calls at the linebacker spot, and that plays into, when you get further and further down the depth chart, special teams, you cannot stress enough how much of an important factor that plays in this. Yeah. And then the secondary, right? You've got corners, you've got safeties, you got guys who play both, Darius Butler and TJ Green, who flip-flop positions. Those are going to be some of the tougher areas they have to decide on. And the receiver depth, is Chester Rogers good? I mean, he was great when he was on the field. We haven't seen him in 2 weeks. JoJo Natson has flashed as a return man. I've got more on him coming tomorrow's star. And then you got a guy like, Quan Bray, who's been here before but hasn't done a whole lot in camp.
I'm going to throw something
Kamar
out there.
Aiken.
Okay, there you go. You hit on one. I'm going to throw this out there. I'm not predicting anything here, but Kamar Aiken is an interesting decision because I'm telling you, a little nugget. The Colts are looking for size among receivers. They've put out a lot of feelers already around the NFL. They're looking at other teams' rosters. I've heard this from some agents, and they're looking for size at receiver. Now, that tells me either they want more size or they're maybe having second thoughts about Aiken. And Aiken has been a guy who's been kind of quiet. I'm just saying, right? I mean, I think Philip Dorsett, is a better asset right now than Kamar Aiken. And not because of one game the other night. I just think his ceiling is much higher than Kamar Aiken's.
Oh, I think it's hard to argue against that.
So I think you go with the guy with the higher ceiling, even if you're wrong about him. I mean, take your chances, right? And Kamar Aiken, I think he is kind of what he is. So maybe they think they can get that somewhere else.
And the one thing we have to add is, we can make these 53-man predictions, but there's going to be 4 or 5 or 3 different spots of guys that are just brand new next week.
Right.
And they're going to pick up guys off the waiver wire based on need. And look at this team; they need spots all over the place.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some unforeseen, moves this team makes that we don't know about right now.
Yeah. So anyway, we're gonna wind this down because we could go on all day about this and still be 99% wrong. So what's the point, right? So we're gonna shut up. We're gonna wind this down. We're gonna be back obviously next week with plenty to talk about. But just keep this in mind. Just be ready for anything here as these cuts come, and not because they have so much talent, but because they have so little talent in some cases to work with.
They have so much need.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah. So this is always a fun or interesting time of year, and this is where your front office makes their money. So.
And the next time we talk, it will be week 1 of the 2017 season, which sounds crazy to think about because we haven't seen Andrew Luck on the practice field, but finally we'll have a game that matters.
Yeah, so we're almost there. Hang on, hang in there. Believe me, if you think you're having to have some patience, okay, let me tell you about patience, okay? We've been doing this every day for the past month and just banging our heads against the wall, but it's what we signed up for, and, we chop wood, so it's what we do. So that's it for us. Week 1 is on the way. Hang in there. I'm Stephen Holder with Zach Keefer, and this is Chopping Wood.